There is a pickle so beloved, so perfectly sweet and sour and crisp that plain families once traded it for bread and butter, and that is how it got its curious name, bread and butter pickles. And I am going to tell you the true story behind that name, which most people have all wrong. And I am going to give you my grandmother's exact recipe, the one that makes a pickle so crisp it snaps when you bite it. So sweet and tangy, you cannot stop eating them straight from the jar. But there is one step, one simple thing you do to the cucumbers before they ever touch the brine that makes the whole difference between a limp, soggy pickle and one that stays crisp and crunchy for a year in the jar. Most people skip it. My grandmother never did. And I am saving that secret for the right moment in this video. So stay with me all the way through because without that one step, all the rest is for nothing. And with it, you will make the crispest, most beautiful pickles you have ever tasted. Let me start with that name, bread and butter pickles, because everyone wonders about it. The story handed down is this. Long ago, in hard times, there was a farming family, and money was scarce, and the wife made these sweet, sour pickles from the cucumbers of their garden, for cucumbers grew in great plenty and cost nothing. And these pickles were so good and so plentiful that the family would trade jars of them at the market or the store for the staples they needed, for bread and for butter. And so they came to be called bread and butter pickles, the pickles that bought the bread and butter. Whether that is the true origin or just a dear old story, I cannot say for certain, but it is the one handed down, and it tells you something true either way, that these humble pickles made from nothing but cucumbers a family grew themselves were precious enough to be worth real money, worth the very bread and butter of the table. There is another telling too that says the pickles were so good and so plentiful that a family could eat them on their bread and butter and be satisfied even when there was little else, that a slice of bread with butter and a few of these sweet crisp pickles made a humble meal feel like plenty. And that rings true to me as well, for these pickles do have a way of making a plain meal feel richer than it is. Either way, the name has stuck for generations, and when you taste them, you will understand why. Now, these are not the sour dill pickles some folks think of. Bread and butter pickles are sweet and sour, both more on the sweet side, made with a good bit of sugar in the brine along with the vinegar, and warm with spices. And they have that particular sweet, tangy flavor and that wonderful crisp snap that make them so beloved. They're eaten on sandwiches, especially wonderful on a ham or a cheese sandwich, and alongside meats, and straight from the jar as a snack and set out in their little dish among the sweets and sours on the plain table. They are perhaps the most popular pickle of all in plain country. And once you make your own, you will never be content with the store kind again. So let me show you how they are made, and I will give you the amounts exact. You start with cucumbers, of course, and here the choice of cucumber matters. So listen, you want firm, fresh, small to medium cucumbers, pickling cucumbers if you can get them, the small knobbly kind, for they are crisper and less watery than the big, smooth, slicing cucumbers. You will need about 4 pounds of cucumbers. You wash them well and you slice them not too thick and not too thin, about a 1/4 inch thick, into rounds. For bread and butter, pickles are traditionally sliced into rounds. And with them, you slice some onions, for onions are part of a proper bread and butter pickle. About 2 medium onions sliced thin. So 4 pounds of cucumbers and 2 onions, all sliced in a big bowl. And now here is that secret step I promised you, the one thing that makes all the difference, and I am going to give it to you now because you must do it right at the start before anything else. Are you ready? It is salt. Before the cucumbers ever touch the brine, you salt them and let them sit. You take your sliced cucumbers and onions and you toss them with a quarter cup of salt, good and thorough. And then, and this is important, you cover them with ice, a good layer of ice cubes over the top, or you set them in the coldest place you have and you let them sit like that for a good while, 3 hours or even better, and you weight them down a little if you can. And what is happening in those hours is the whole secret. The salt is drawing the excess water out of the cucumbers, all that water that would otherwise make a limp, soggy pickle. And the ice is keeping them cold and firm and crisp the whole time. This salting and chilling is what gives you a pickle that stays crisp and snappy for a year in the jar instead of going soft and sad. Do not skip it. Do not rush it. This one step, the salt and the ice and the waiting, is the difference between a limp pickle and a perfect one. And it is the thing my grandmother never once skipped, and now you know it. After those hours, you drain the cucumbers and onions well, very well, and rinse them to remove the excess salt and drain again, pressing out the water. They will be firmer already and crisp and ready for the brine. And let me pause right here for just a moment because I want to tell you something. What I have just given you, that salt and ice secret, is the single most valuable thing in this whole recipe. The thing that took plain women generations to learn and that most modern recipes leave out entirely. And there is more like it coming. More of the old, hard won wisdom that makes the difference between food that merely fills and food that a family treasures for generations. If you want to learn these old secrets, the real ways that are so nearly lost now, please subscribe to my kitchen right now before you forget. For every subscriber is what lets me keep making these videos and keep teaching these old skills to folks like you who want to learn them. It would mean the world to me to have you here for all of it. Now, let me go on. For now comes the brine. For the sweet sour brine, you combine in a pot 2 cups of vinegar, cider or white, and 2 cups of sugar. For these are sweet pickles and the sugar is generous. And then the spices, which give bread and butter pickles their warm, particular flavor. You add a tablespoon and a half of mustard seed and a teaspoon of celery seed and a teaspoon of turmeric, which gives that lovely golden color, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger if you like. And some add a bit of ground cloves. You bring that brine to a boil, stirring until the sugar is fully dissolved, and let it come to a good boil. Now you add your drained cucumbers and onions to the hot brine. And here is another key to keeping them crisp. Do not boil them long. You bring the whole thing back to just barely a boil or near it, heating the cucumbers through in the hot brine for just a few minutes, but you do not let them cook and go soft. Just heat them through until they turn from bright green to a more olive color and are hot through only a few minutes, keeping them crisp. Overcook them here, and all your careful salting and chilling is undone. So keep it brief, just hot through, and now you put them up. If you are keeping them in the ice box, the simple way, you pack the pickles and their brine into clean jars, let them cool, cap them, and refrigerate, and they will be good and flavorful in a day or two, better in a week, and they keep in the ice box for many weeks. That is the easy, fresh way. But To keep them on the shelf all year, the old way that fed families through the winter, you can them in a boiling water bath. You pack the hot pickles and hot brine into clean, hot canning jars, leaving a half inch of headspace. Wipe the rims clean, set the lids, and screw the bands fingertip tight, and process the filled jars in a boiling water bath for about 10 minutes for pints. Then lift them out, let them cool, listen for the seals to ping down, and the sealed jars keep on the shelf for a year or more. And do mind your canning carefully. Clean hot jars, proper headspace, the full processing time, and check every seal when the jars are cool for these sweet pickles are acid enough to be safe in a water bath when done properly, but only when done properly. So give it your careful attention as the plain women always did. And here is a thing worth knowing. Bread and butter pickles are actually better after they have sat a few weeks, for the flavor deepens and mellows in the jar. So if you can bear to wait, do not open them right away. Let them sit a month and they will be even better. Let me give you a few variations and a few more tips, for there's always more to know. Some families like their bread and butter pickles a touch sweeter still and add a bit more sugar, while some cut it back for a sharper pickle. So taste your brine and suit your own family. Some add a sliced green or red pepper to the jar for color and a little extra flavor. Some add a bit of garlic. The turmeric can be more for a deeper gold. And here is a small trick worth knowing. Some old plain women added a grape leaf or two to each jar, or a pinch of a thing called alum, or a bit of the special pickle crisp you can buy now, all to help keep the pickles extra crisp. Though if you do the salt and ice step well, you truly do not need any of that, for the salt and ice is the real secret of the crisp, and the rest is just extra insurance. And do slice your cucumbers evenly, all about the same thickness, so they pickle evenly and all come out the same good crispness. Little things, but they are the difference between a good pickle and a perfect one, and now you have them all. Now, let me tell you what these pickles meant and mean in plain life, for it is more than just a good pickle. Bread and butter pickles were a way to turn a great glut of cucumbers into something precious and lasting. Cucumbers, you see, come on all at once in high summer, more than any family could ever eat fresh, a great overwhelming flood of them, and they do not keep fresh but a little while. So the plain woman turned that flood into pickles, jar after jar of them, preserving the summer's bounty into something that would keep all year and grace the table all through the cold months. And these particular pickles, sweet and crisp and beloved, were so good that, as the old name tells us, they were worth trading for the very staples of life, precious enough to buy bread and butter. That is the plain genius again, taking something that grew in overwhelming free plenty and would otherwise rot, and turning it through skill and a little sugar and spice into something treasured and lasting and worth real money. Nothing wasted, everything saved. The summer's flood preserved into the winter's delight. And I will tell you, there is a deep satisfaction in a shelf of your own pickles that I wish everyone could know. To look at a row of jars you filled yourself, from cucumbers you grew or bought cheap in the summer glut, knowing you have crisp, sweet pickles to enjoy and to share all the year round, made by your own hands for pennies, that is a quiet pride and a real security both. My grandmother's cellar shelves were lined with them, the bread and butter pickles among all the other put up food, and she took such comfort in those full shelves, that deep old comfort of having provided, of having caught and kept the summer's plenty against the winter's want. It is a comfort we have largely lost in these days of the store always open and the shelf always full, and I think we are the poorer for losing it, but you can have it back. It starts with 4 pounds of cucumbers and a little salt and ice and patience. I remember the pickle making days of high summer so well. the kitchen full of the smell of the vinegar and spices heating, the great bowls of sliced cucumbers under their ice, the whole day given over to it. The cucumbers came on so heavy in July and August that we could not keep up with them fresh. And so the pickling days came, and we children helped with the slicing and the packing, our hands smelling of cucumber and dill and vinegar for days. And I remember the pride of the full jars cooling on the table at the end of the day, the golden pickles bright in the glass, rows and rows of them, and knowing we had turned that overwhelming flood of cucumbers into treasure that would last us all the year. There was such satisfaction in it, even to a child, that turning of too much now into just enough later, that catching of the summer before it could slip away and rot. It is one of the deep old rhythms of the plain life, that turning of the season's gluts into the year's provision, and the bread and butter pickle days were among the sweetest of them. So this summer, when the cucumbers come on in their great plenty, make bread and butter pickles. Slice your cucumbers and onions, and do not skip the salt and ice, for that is the whole secret of the crisp. Make your sweet, spiced brine, heat them through, but keep them crisp and put them up in the ice box or canned for the year. And then enjoy them on your sandwiches and alongside your meats and straight from the jar, and share them and taste in them the whole sweet story of the plain kitchen, the thrift and the skill and the wisdom that turns a free summer glut into a treasured winter delight. That is the plain way, and these humble, beloved pickles, the ones once worth their weight in bread and butter, are one of its sweetest and crispest expressions, and now they can grace your table too. And once you have made them one time and tasted how far beyond the store kind they are, crisp and bright and sweet and sour all at once, I do not think you will ever go back, for a homemade bread and butter pickle spoils you for the limp, bland store kind forever. If you would like this recipe written out with all its amounts and every other recipe and old skill, I know all the pickles and the ways of putting up the summer, they are gathered together in my kitchen field book, waiting for you just below this video. 100 recipes from Lancaster County, going all the way back to 1720, written down the way I would tell them to you if you were sitting right here at my table. And if this video has taught you something you did not know, if you want to learn all the old secrets of the plain kitchen, then please subscribe and stay with me. For every subscriber helps me keep making these videos and keeping these old ways alive. And there is so much more I want to show you. I share these old recipes every few days. There is always room here at my table for one more. Until next time, God bless your hands, God bless your kitchen, and God bless every soul who gathers at your table. Now go and make your bread and butter pickles and taste that perfect, crisp